Michael Hyatt is an author who tells a story of when he and his wife went to Maui for an anniversary trip. That sounds pretty nice right about now, doesn't it? They went to Maui and they snorkeled for the first time. They took snorkeling lessons in their hotel, and first they started in a pool, and then they moved out into this just small area, and he said it was just amazing. They just fell in love with snorkeling. Because you can imagine in Hawaii the kinds of things that you would see. I mean, just all these multicolored fish and coral reef and all this stuff. So they just fell in love with it, and they said, you know, we like this so much, we're going to rent our own equipment, and then we're going to go out on our own the next day. So the next morning, they go out to the beach, they've got their equipment, and they just kind of plop in the water, and they're just loving it. I mean, they're saying, you know, just all this stuff to look at, warm water, you know, the water's clear there, seeing all these fish and the coral reef and everything. He said it was just a wow experience. And so they're doing that for a while, and then something caused him to look up and look around. And he discovered that they had drifted, they had gotten caught in a riptide and gotten carried out over a mile from the shore. So he said the hotels looked like just little toys that far away. And I don't know, so they're now going to have to swim back to the shore. And I don't know if you have any perspective of how long it would take to swim for over a mile, but that would be over 32 lengths of an Olympic-sized pool. Okay, so this is how far they are. So they're in a panic, I mean, needless to say. And they're like, what are we going to do? And so fortunately, he said they had brought a boogie board with them because they were hoping to find some shells and things along the way to bring back. They thought they were only going to be a few feet from the shore, so they'd bring their little shells back and take them home as mementos. But instead, this boogie board became their life raft, and they grabbed hold of that thing, and he said literally started swimming for their life to get back to the shore. Now, he's telling the tale today, so we know that they survived. They got back to the shore. But the thing is, they started out with this great plan for the day. And it started out working really well. But what they didn't figure into the plan for the day was the riptide, the current that started pulling them off course from where they wanted to be. You know, our life so many times is like that. We start off with a great plan for our day, our month, our year, our life. And it's great for a while until these currents start pulling us off course. And there's all kinds of currents that can pull us off track from our destination. I mean, some of them are simple as just personal weaknesses that we have. Okay, don't raise your hand, but maybe some of you set a course this year to say, I want to be more healthy. I want to exercise more. I'm going to go to the gym more. And so that all sounds great, and it looks great when you write it down on paper. You might even tell somebody, but then when it's 5:30 in the morning and it's time, your alarm is beeping and going off, and it's freezing cold outside, you're thinking, I don't know about that. And the discipline, sometimes we don't have internally enough discipline to get ourselves up to stay on track with a good course that we've set for ourselves. Then another current that can pull us off course is our friends, our family. I mean, as well-intentioned, as well-meaning as they are, sometimes they can pull us off course, because I dare say, as we have gone through this holiday season. See, maybe when you went through this holiday season, you had a goal that you said, I'm gonna eat better this holiday season. I am not gonna gorge myself. I'm not gonna eat all that junk. And then here comes along your family and your friends bringing all this junk into your house. And you and I both know that if they weren't bringing that stuff into your house, you would not be eating any of that. But here they come, bringing all this stuff, and then it's this current pulling you off course. And then there's more subtle currents that pull us off course. Just the culture around us, the messages that we get through advertising, the messages we get through our entertainment, just subtle messages that eat away at us and can take us off course from where God would want us to be, and oftentimes where we ourselves would want to go. Sometimes we end up setting a course for ourselves, and then years later, decades later, we kind of wake up one day and we say, how did I get here? And we got here because some currents pulled us off course. We want to talk this morning about how we can anchor ourselves so that currents can't pull us off course. We're going to look at a scene in the life of Jesus where he is being pulled on by his close friends and by his fans. He is very popular at this point. And they are pulling on him kind of like a current to pull him off course. But he has a secret. He has a practice that keeps him anchored to what he is supposed to be doing, what he knows that his Father wants him to do. And it's a very simple practice, but it's not always easy to do. See, simple doesn't always equal easy. So if you're here this morning and you feel like you're drifting, or if you woke up recently and said, how did I get here? Then maybe you too need an anchor for yourself. And we want to look here together at what Jesus did, because we can all follow his example and find an anchor for ourselves. So if you would take a Bible and turn to the book of Mark, chapter 1, and verse 35 is where we're going to start today. The book of Mark is the second of 4 historical documents that tell us about the life of Jesus. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Some of the best, probably the best attested historical documents we have from that time period of 2,000 years ago to tell us what Jesus was like. So if you are not very familiar with the Bible, if you don't know much about what the Bible has to say, if you don't know much about what Jesus is like, then the book of Mark is a great place to start. It's the shortest of these 4 historical documents. It'll take you maybe an hour and a half or so to read the whole way through. And I dare you to do that if you don't know much about the Bible or don't know much about Jesus, because sometimes we can hear a lot about what other people say about Jesus, but the best source to understand who Jesus is what these historical documents that tell us about him. So I encourage you to read that. But we're going to drop in here and we're going to look at a few verses this morning and this habit that he had that anchored him. So Mark chapter 1, verse 35. It says, rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he, Jesus, departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him and said to him, everyone is looking for you. Okay, so here's Jesus. He has gone off by himself to pray, to be private, and then everyone is hunting him down. His closest friends are hunting him down. They're saying, everybody's looking for you. Why would everyone be looking for him? Well, let's go back to verse 32, because this answers that question. It says, that evening at sundown, this is the night before, they brought to him all who were sick or oppressed by demons, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. And he, Jesus, healed many who were sick with various diseases, and he cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. So Jesus healed all these people, crowds of people coming to him to be healed. And see, this is exciting for them. I mean, people are pumped up about this because some of these people have spent all their money going to doctors trying to get healed, and they've gotten nowhere with that. So they come to Jesus, and Jesus heals them, and he does it for free. I mean, people love free stuff, especially good free stuff. And so people are telling their friends, and they're bringing their friends, and so that's why everyone's looking for him. They're like, Jesus, do it again. Do some more of that good stuff. Do it for me. You haven't done it for me. I heard you did it for my cousin. Do it for me. So people are clamoring for him. They're looking for him. They're hunting him down. And you can imagine here, I mean, think about them as a current, okay? Jesus is floating along here, and they're a current trying to pull him. I mean, you probably have some people like that in your life. I mean, probably just think about all the people around you. Everybody has an agenda for your life. Everybody has things that they want from you. And some of those things are good. Some of those things are legitimate. Some of those things are really your responsibility. But not everything is. And see, everything that everybody else wants you to do is urgent for them. It's important for them, but it may not always be what it is that you are being called to do. And so Jesus knows that in order to stay anchored, in order to figure out what he is supposed to do, he goes into verse 35. Rising early in the morning while it was still dark, he departed, he went to a desolate place. There he prayed. There he went and he spent time with his Father, because Jesus knows that undistracted prayer provides an anchor. It's undistracted prayer that provides an anchor. It anchors us, it brings us into the presence of our Creator. In our case, for Jesus was not created by God. He's coming to his Father. But he is coming back to the source of his direction. And so he knows he needs to spend time in God's presence. If you were here last week, or if you weren't here last week, we talked about being in the presence of God, or just being fully present as we interact with the people around us. How it's possible for us to be physically in the same space, but not really fully be present. And so we talked specifically last week about the danger of our electronic devices and how they can get in the way of us. And one of the things we said, one of the warnings I gave you last week is, don't let a device come before a person that you are sitting physically with. Now, what we can see here in this scene from Jesus is it is possible also to let the wrong people come before the most important person. It's possible to let all the people around you who are pulling at you, trying to pull you in their direction and do what they want you to do, it's possible for them to pull you off direction and off course, and we need to spend time with the most important person. Elsewhere, Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he said the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God. Many of you know this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. Do you know what that leaves left over for everybody else? Not much. It's saying, I'm giving all of it to God first and foremost, primarily. What's left over for the other people around us is whatever God then directs us to give to them. But first and foremost, all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, all of our strength is to be reserved for God and to come to him first and foremost. And Jesus knew that. See, the people in our life are so important and so crucial, and we're talking about groups, and we're encouraging all of you to get involved in groups, and they're so crucial to be part of our spiritual growth. But all of the people who are closest to us, whether it's friends, it's family, it's even our spouse, at times they can become currents in our lives. They can become riptides in our life, pulling us off course, because God is truly the one who knows exactly where we need to go, exactly what we need to be doing. And so he is our anchor. And Jesus knew that he needed to be coming back to the Father and be coming back to that anchor. Psalm 18:31 says, who is a rock except our God? Who is a rock except our God? Don't rely on any other person in your life to be a rock. They may be steady, they may be reliable, they may be loyal, they may love you, but God is the only rock that will never move. And so Jesus knew, I need to be going back to the rock as my anchor. And he knew undistracted prayer is what connects us to God. He needed to talk to God. He needed to hear from God and know, what do you really want from me? Do you want me to do all this stuff that all these people are wanting me to do? Or do you want me to do something else? Undistracted prayer provides the anchor. Now, one of the keys here is the word undistracted. Okay? Undistracted prayer. Okay, this is not Jesus praying as he is walking and moving on to meet the next need. Okay, this is not the prayer that we toss up while we're driving to work with the radio blaring, with obnoxious other drivers around us, distracting us, with our mind consumed with all the things that are on our schedule for the day. That's not undistracted prayer. That's okay. You can toss up those 911 prayers, but we need undistracted prayer. And so Jesus makes some choices here to help him be undistracted. And we need to take note of this. If we want to be anchored, if we want to be undistracted, let's look at what he did again in verse 35. It says, rising very early in the morning while it was still dark. Okay, some of you are grimacing and cringing already. Mark is going out of his way to make clear how early in the morning. He didn't just say very early in the morning. I mean, some of us might think that's 9:30. He said, no, it's very early in the morning while it was still dark. So this time of year, we're talking like before 7. In the summertime, it could be before like 5:45. I mean, when does the sun come up? It comes up ridiculously early. And so Jesus is getting up early in the morning to spend time with God, very early in the morning. Now, before you panic, those of you who are not morning people, okay, we're going to look at another passage in a few minutes where Jesus also prayed at night. It's okay to pray in the evening as well. But see, here's one of the things that's significant about getting up very early in the morning while it's still dark. There are fewer other people up at that time. That's what I've found, because I do tend to get up early in the morning. I found that there's fewer other people to distract me. There are fewer other people up who are asking me for things or starting to bang around in the kitchen and make noise. I mean, it's a time of quietness to get up early in the morning. Now, I realize some of you work far away. Some of you drive an hour to work every day. And so you're already doing good just to get up in time to get to work for that. So you have to figure this out with your schedule. I'm not saying that morning is the only time that you can find undistracted time, but you have to think through your schedule. When can I find a time of day where I can be undistracted and not have all these other voices coming at me? There's a second thing, a choice that he makes here, and that is the place. So there's the time and the place to be undistracted. The place, it says he departed and he went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. So he departed. See, sometimes we're going to have to leave the place of chaos so we can get to the place of quiet. We're going to have to walk away from the place where all of the action, all the craziness, and all the voices are happening. We need to walk away from that and find a desolate place where we can be alone. That word desolate elsewhere is translated as wilderness. And so many of you are familiar with the scene where Jesus is tempted in the desert, in the wilderness. That's the same word as here. And there's a picture up here. This would be the Judean wilderness, kind of an example of where Jesus spent time. Not a vacation spot, not like Maui, not a place that you would enjoy going, just to spend time. But it's desolate. If you want to be alone, if you want to be undistracted, it's a great place for that. And Jesus had been there before under different circumstances, being tempted by the devil. And now it says he goes back there to connect with his Father because he can be alone. So one of the challenges of our life, if we want to be anchored, if we want to learn how to pray and listen to God's voice and talk to him and be anchored, one of the challenges is we need to find our desolate place. Where do you go to be alone, to be quiet away from all the voices? As our family visits our in-laws from time to time in Texas, I've been challenged to find a space in their house where I can have time alone. And I don't know about you, but when I go on vacation, I need God more than ever. Like I don't take a vacation from God. If I'm going to have a right attitude, and I love my family, but just spending all that time with family and extended family. I need time with God. So I need to find a desolate place. And there's 8 of us that spend time in a house that's a 3-bedroom house. It's a rancher. There's no basement in this area of Texas. So it's challenging to find a space to get up in the morning and be alone. And so what I have landed on in recent years is going into the laundry room. It's the only place where somebody is not sleeping. I used to go into a closet. Now it's been claimed by somebody to sleep in. And so now I go into the laundry room and I sit in the floor in the laundry room. And I love it. And my mother-in-law, she's so sweet. She'll get up in the morning and she'll see me in there. She's like, Dave, you don't have to be in there. You don't have to sit on the floor in there. Come out here and sit in the chair. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is perfect. I can come in here. I can close the door. There's a light switch. And most of all, I'm undisturbed. I'm undistracted. And this is my time to get my day started with the Lord. There's a young man who attends here at CrossWalk. He contacted me this week. And he said, Dave, I need a space to pray. Could I use a room at the church this week to pray? Because I'm just going to spend a day in prayer. And he said, I need to get away from my house. I need to get away from my workplace because there's so many distractions there. I mean, if I stay at home or if I go into my office, I'm just going to get sucked into all the things that everybody else wants me to do or things I even need to do. I need to get away, and I just want to pray. And I said, sure, we've got lots of rooms that aren't used here during the week. And so he came and just spent the whole day back here in the youth room, in the studio. And he told me he had just a great day praying. We need to find a desolate place. Find a place that's free of distraction. Because the goal is we want to experience God's presence. We want to be before God's face during that time. Because here's what happens when we are in God's presence. Psalm 16:11 says, you, God, make known to me the path of life. In your presence, there is fullness of what? Joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. See, the reason some of us aren't experiencing very much joy in our life is because we're not spending very much time in the presence of God. He says, in your presence is fullness of joy. If you want a little more joy in your life, maybe you need to be carving out a little more time to be going back to that anchor. Another verse, Isaiah 30, verse 15 says, in quietness and in trust shall be your what? Strength. Shall be your strength. See, some of us don't feel very strong right now internally. And that's because we're not spending any time in quietness, in trust. We're not spending any time in the presence of God. And Jesus knows that he needs an anchor. So he gets away, he spends time with his Father, and then here is the result in verse 38. Everyone's coming after him. They're looking for him. Verse 38, Jesus said to them, let us go on to the next towns that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out. And he went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. See, basically, Jesus has the strength to say no to what other people are wanting to put on him, what people are asking of him, the demands that they have for him. He's able to say no to those things because he has come before his Father, spent time in his presence, and he says, Father, I'm going to say yes to what you have for me, and I'll say no to everything else. And that's the anchor that keeps us from drifting. We will need that anchor as you and I each on our own pursue having better health. As we want to eat better, as we want to exercise better, we're going to need to say no to a lot of things, and we need an anchor that helps keep us from pulling off course. We're going to need that anchor in the significant relationships of our life, in our marriages. There are going to be a lot of currents that want to pull us off course in marriage and make us say we want to throw in the towel on that. We're going to need to be anchored day after day after day to stay on course in our marriages. We're going to need to be anchored to stay on course with our serving. Because I'll guarantee you, if if you have offered, if you have gotten involved in serving here in some capacity, there will come a day, if it hasn't already, that you will wake up in the morning and say, I don't feel like doing that today. I don't like what so-and-so did last week. It's too cold outside. It's whatever. I don't feel like doing this anymore. It's gotten too hard, and we're going to be anchored in order to follow through on what we've committed before the Lord to do. And see, Jesus knows that this is not a one-time deal. Okay, he didn't just pray in this scene and then that's the only time we hear about it. Flip over a few pages to Matthew chapter 6, another scene where Jesus is impacting, this time, thousands of people. He has actually just fed 5,000, it says 5,000 men, so there's wives and women and children along with them. He's fed all of these people at the height of his popularity. And then in Mark 6:46, it says, after he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. And when Matthew talks about this same scene after the feeding of the 5,000, he tells us it was evening. Okay, so it's okay to pray in the evening. Jesus knows he needs to go back to his anchor. Another time, near the end of his ministry, flip over to Mark chapter 14 and verse 35. This is the night that Jesus is betrayed. He is facing torture and execution, and he knows all of this is coming. And so in chapter 14, he goes to a garden of Gethsemane. And in verse 35, it says, going a little farther, he fell on the ground and he prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. And he came the third time and said to them, are you still sleeping and taking your rest? It is enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. If anyone was ever in a setting, ever in a situation where they're facing something that they don't want to go through, he's clear on that. Father, remove this cup from me. I would love to get out of this situation. If ever there was a time when a current or a riptide might want to pull us away from staying on mission and on task, it was this scene right here. He knew what was ahead of him. It wasn't just the physical torture, as horrific as that was, but it was also the spiritual separation that Jesus was going to encounter that he had never experienced. He has been connected to his Father from eternity past. And for the first time, he will be separated from God his Father because he has chosen to take your sin and my sin on himself. And the Father turned his back on Jesus, and for a period of time, they were separated as Jesus had never experienced before. He knew all of that was coming, and he knew it was going to be hard to stay on track, on course, and he prayed. He prayed. If Jesus needed undistracted prayer to stay anchored to his mission, how much more do you and I need the same thing in our lives? Undistracted prayer provides an anchor. See, Jesus is I love how he's completely open and honest with his pain before the Father. Remove this cup from me. God, I would love to get out of this in some way. He's just open and honest before the Lord. I was talking with a man this week who was just sharing about just all of this really difficult stuff that's going on in his life. And in the midst of that, he said, I know that I can bring all of this to God. And that's what gives me strength to keep moving on. And I thought, what a valuable lesson that we all need to know. That even in the pain of our life, we can bring that to our Father. So the question for you and me is how anchored do you want to be? I mean, if you're okay with kind of drifting through life and letting the currents carry you wherever they will, then you can ignore all of this. And probably you've already tuned me out by now, if that's the case. But if you want to be anchored, if you don't want the currents of life just pulling you every which way, then we need to follow the example of Jesus. And we need to get undistracted time to pray and connect with our Father in heaven. So here's my challenge for you this week, very specific. And that is to take 10 minutes every day this week to be undistracted with God. Undistracted time praying with God. Now you may ask the question, I'm not sure what to do for 10 minutes. I mean, what would I do? Do I just sit there silently or what? And so I would just say to you, what do you do with your friends? When you get together with a friend, what do you do with them? Well, probably you talk, and hopefully you listen. Okay, those two things. I mean, you talk about what's going on in your life, and hopefully you listen to what's going on in their life. And that's really what prayer is, as we talk about spending prayer time with our Father in heaven. It's talking, sharing with him, here's what's going on in my life. God, I'm bringing you my burdens. I'm bringing you my pain. I'm bringing you my questions. But we're also listening. We're listening for what he has to say for us. And here is the number one way we begin to listen to God, and that is by reading his word, what he has already said. See, God has spoken, and it has been recorded for us, and this is how we know what God is saying. See, sometimes I get confused about the voices in my head, like, is this God, or is this the pizza I ate last night, or is this just what somebody else wants? Or sometimes I get confused trying to sort those things out. And what helps me sort those things out is knowing, here is what he has already said. I know this is what he's already said. So anything that he says to me today that is unique to my situation is not going to contradict what he has already said. The better I know what he's already said, the better I will know what he is speaking to me in his will for me today. So I want to spend time. So those are the two things I encourage you to do as you take time with God. Spend some time listening to him by reading his word, and then spend time talking to him and telling him what's on your mind and what's on your heart. And what I found is, and what I believe is, the better we listen to what God is saying to us, the more effective our talking back to him will be. He's going to mold and shape even what we're asking for and what we want. So it's this dialogue. It becomes this dialogue and learning how to listen. It doesn't happen overnight. It hasn't happened overnight for me anyway. I don't hear audible voices. Very rarely, once in a while, I will have a strong nudge and a strong urge that I have learned how to figure out, okay, that's God nudging me and urging me in a certain direction. That doesn't happen but once every couple of years. I wish it would happen more often. I mean, sometimes I'm like, God, I really need to know about this or that or whatever, and it's just taking a while. But it's a process, just like developing a relationship with a friend. It's learning how to listen, how to know this other person who just happens to be my creator, who happens to be my God. So some resources to help you with that. If you do not have a Bible, there are those Bibles there at your seat, those English Standard Versions. You're free to take one of those. That's why we got those versions, is for you to be able to take one. So just take one with you and use that to be listening to God. Another fantastic resource that I talk about often is the app YouVersion that you can get for any device, smartphones and Androids. You can get the YouVersion for that. And that's free. And there are all kinds of reading plans on there, and I use that multiple times every day, looking up things, reading God's Word. Another resource that was handed out a couple of weeks ago, and there's some of these on the back table, there's a card when Alan Mummert preached a couple of weeks ago, there's a prayer for humility on that card, and there's some other prayer points there, some things to be pursuing. This, you can utilize this as kind of a structure, some input for your prayer time. And you may want to, just as you learn how to do 10 minutes a day, what I will sometimes do is just set a timer. Just set a timer so you don't have to be checking your watch. I just set a timer on your phone or just get a kitchen timer, set it for 10 minutes, and that way when it goes off, you know, okay, I've spent my time and I'm going to move into other things in my day. For kids, if you are parents who have kids in our elementary area, then your kids came home last week with a really neat resource here that goes along with this Take 10 idea. This is a resource to help your kids take time with God. So I would encourage you to utilize this with them in the weeks to come. We're going to talk more about spending time with our kids here in a couple of weeks, but that's available to you right now. This idea of being anchored, this practice to be anchored is simple, but again, it's not easy. It's not easy in the busy, distracted world we live in to carve out time for anything, to carve out undistracted time for anything. So it's not simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. And you may want to, as we said last week, you may want to find a spiritual workout partner for this. You may want to find somebody and say, hey, would you ask me sometime during this week or sometime later this month, would you ask me how I'm doing? Because I really want to do this. I want to carve out some undistracted time. I need to be anchored because I want to see you anchored and not just drifting through life.